name is Lasenki, and today I will be discussing pressure in relation to moral courage in adolescence. So, firstly, raise your hands if you've ever heard of the saying, you jump, I jump. Okay, thanks guys. Raise your hand if you've ever done something because your friends were doing it. Okay? Now, raise your hands if you didn't do something even though your friends were doing it because you thought it was wrong. That right there is the defiance of moral courage. So, firstly, what is moral courage? According to William Miller's book, The Mystery of Courage, moral courage is defined as the capacity to overcome shame or fear, to admit a wrong, reject evil conformity, defy immoral imprudence orders, or denounce injustice. So for those of you who just raised your hands to my prior question, that was your moral courage rejecting an evil conformity. Moral courage is amazing in theory. However, there are many factors that dictate its use. Pressure is a major factor and has various aspects in which it affects an individual. It can stem from peer pressure, in person or on social media. It can impact or be impacted by one's mental health. It can impact or be impacted by one's self-esteem, as well as one's moral identity. These factors apply either a positive or a negative pressure, dictating the use of your moral courage. So, students at a high school called ETHS were the subjects of a survey regarding peer pressure. The survey found that 77% of students felt peer pressure from their friends. It was concluded that when peers fail to assimilate, the quality of that relationship suffers. So, this leads to the question, to what extent does pressure affect adolescents' moral courage? Through extensive research, I have concluded that adolescents are highly influenced and affected by pressure, which sway the use of their moral courage. Pressure can appear in different forms. Factors can cause pressure or be the pressure. That said, I will be talking about 3 types of pressure today. I will be discussing peer/conformity pressure, pressure from self-esteem and self-efficacy, as well as pressure from moral identity. So firstly, conformity/peer pressure. In today's society, adolescents are primarily influenced to take drugs or use alcohol. According to Abiageli and Nasiru from the University of Illinois in Nigeria, quote, peer pressure leads to the use of drugs and alcohol by the majority of adolescents. As seen in the image on the top right, the girl's moral courage is likely influenced her to steer away from her peers who are doing alcohol and have caused her to become socially outcasted. Such feelings of loneliness and fear of rejection leads to adolescents working against their moral courage. Additionally, peer pressure or the strive to fit in can encourage an individual to forego their own concern for personal safety, which is kept in check by moral courage. For example, in the stimulus material Through the Tunnel by Doris Lessing, Jerry, the main character, attempts to go through a tunnel underwater to impress and be accepted by another group of kids. When he trains to reach his goal, he often experiences nosebleeds and deprives himself of air. Jerry is skeptical of continuing his training because of his physical pain, but the idea of fitting in and being impressive to the boys drives him forward. Next, self-esteem and self-efficacy. Both play a vital role in determining whether or not to engage in moral courage. A high self-esteem equips adolescents with a greater chance in following through moral courage. Going against a group labels the individuals as moral rebels who are, quote, provided with the resources to take action when faced with a challenge, Zonatag et al. However, these individuals are, quote, characterized by hostility and aggressiveness due to their high self-esteem, Yawuser et al. This discourages their peers from associating with them and deserts these individuals. This may cause individuals to work against their moral courage. On the other hand, promoting self-efficacy, which is the capacity for one to carry out a task, can help adolescents defy their peers, influencing them towards moral courage. Since this is more of a decision to make definitively rather than defend, adolescents are less likely to be socially abandoned. Finally, moral identity. Firstly, it is important to understand what herd mentality is. Herd mentality is the idea that a group conforms to a certain idea. So, moral identity has individuals consider the magnitude of consequences associated with unethical choices, Tillman et al. Individuals with a strong moral identity can break away from herd mentality and foster social growth. According to Zonatag and Barnett, the act of defending one's own beliefs and values in the face of pressure to comply is a memorable event for any adolescent. Contrary, moral disengagement is the result of a poor moral identity. It is defined as a self-regulatory mechanism where one is disengaged from moral conduct. The pressure to take the easy route of the immoral conduct leads to moral courage suffering. This chart here depicts how girls versus boys handle their moral conduct. It is on a scale of 1 to 5 and shows how girls are less likely to use aggression in comparison to boys and are more likely to use collective efficacy. So how do we foster pressure for moral courage? It comes from a twofold approach. One, where parents are building mechanisms and schools are sustaining mechanisms. Parents should distinguish good and bad characteristics, empower individuals, and foster social growth. Limitations to this: pros, it teaches adolescents about social red flags, it allows for self-confidence to defy groups, as well as provide adolescents with healthy friendships. On the other hand, the cons: parents may align with red flags, social pressures may influence parents otherwise, and individuals' dynamicness can foster unstable relationships. Schools should promote moral courage, as well as offer in-school socialization opportunities and provide mandatory counseling. The limitations of this: pros, it limits herd mentality, it creates a safer learning environment, as well as supports the growth of a moral identity. And the cons of this are that it takes away from classroom instruction. Students may not be receptive to this, as well as it doesn't provide enough time for students to meet with their counselors on a daily basis as much as they'd like. Thus, as an overall solution, I believe that parents and schools should work cohesively together, which will be the most effective solution in promoting moral courage against pressure. Thank you.
So we have some questions for you. How did you handle the differing perspectives in order to reach a conclusion?
So the different perspectives throughout my research show that there were some positive aspects to moral courage that promoted it, and some negatives that brought it down. And so using parents and schools as a way to ground my research and organize my research in ways that can help promote positives for students to initiate more moral courage, and then get rid of the negatives, allowed me to organize the research and help me with this task.
Okay. How did you use the conclusions and questions of others to advance your own research?
So a lot of the other research that I used had solutions that align with my own solution. They talked about using trusted adults in order to foster a healthy moral courage for an adolescent. So my solution, using schools and parents, an environment that has adults all around them, supports this conclusion from other research and builds upon exactly how and what measures parents and schools can take in order to foster a healthy moral courage in adolescents.
Okay, thank you.